Welcome to the business edition of PM Express. Let's talk about going online, virtual, and even e-commerce in the wake of this COVID-19 for businesses to reach out to their clients as governments, institutions actually enforce the social distancing and a ban on public gathering. But really, is that the way to go? What are the threats in doing this in terms of going virtual? Are there real opportunities out there for those budding entrepreneurs and businesses that want to test this market or this space, or really it is not there for us? Maybe people just want to engage their businesses directly. Well, on Business Edition of PM Express, we're trying to look at this. If you're a business person out there, we're trying to look at whether the system, the environment is right for this or not. We'll be engaging the Deputy Minister of Communications, that is George, and also Mr. Achihesi. He plays in terms of trying to regulate the various financial platforms in the country in terms of you making the payment. And some will say that is a very, very critical thing if you want to go virtual. What about the telcos in terms of providing us with data? Well, the Chief Executive of the Telecoms Chamber would also be joining us in this discussion. And also somebody who plays in the tech space, actually payment platform, Sakib Naziz, maybe here in the studio. We're getting more from him about whether the market is ready or not. Going virtual in the midst of COVID-19, the real opportunities and the threats. All these things wrapped up on the business edition of PM Express. Welcome back to the PM edition, the business edition of PM Express, and we're looking at going virtual. What are the opportunities? What are the threats out there? Let's talk about, the fact that COVID-19 and things will just never be the same. So listen, you have to look at going virtual, investing heavy, and how you can look at these various tech platforms to actually serve your customers. But what are the threats out there? What are the opportunities out there? All these things wrapped up on the PM Express, the business edition, as I engage a player in the industry, the regulators, and all those people out there who play a very critical role when it comes to the tech space. Sakib Nazir is a player in this industry. Sakib, welcome to PM Express Business Edition.
Thank you,
and there's something I want to get a basic understanding when we talk about going virtual, the 101s. I mean, so George Biafi or a Kwabena Mensah guy is into fresh fruits and all the rest, and he wants to explore the tech space in terms of virtual. I mean, walk me through. I have a laptop, yes, of course. I have 1,000 clients out there. How easy, how smooth is it to explore the tech space to actually get to my customers?
Great. Thank you, George. Thank you for having me. And, every crisis is also a time for opportunity. And to be honest, it's never been easier to do e-commerce or to go virtual as it is today. Luckily, we have all the tools available that we may need. There's so many tools out there that can easily help you get going and set up an e-commerce website, accepting payments, and being ready to serve your customers within a day. So it just takes a bit of effort, doing some research, but there's so many ready-made tools. And really, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Everything has been done for us. So it's just a matter of us looking for the right tools, setting ourselves up, and getting going.
Not to try, and I know, be careful trying to promote any brand and all the rest, but so for instance, I mean, what does it take in terms of the real cost, the things I need in trying to explore the virtual space? If I'm an entrepreneur, I'm selling fresh fruit juice, and now I can hardly get to my customers. So listen, pay everything online. I'll let a dispatch person bring it to you and all the rest. How do I get around that?
Okay. So great. So there are many companies out there. There are many consultants. Websites are easy to make, and most websites.
So first is the website.
First, you need, preferably a website, or an app, which are easy, or a phone-friendly website, which can adjust to the size of the phone. Okay, and a lot of them now have e-commerce capability. So then it's a matter of loading your inventory. Okay, and the pricing and taking the pictures. That's the hard work, actually. And making sure your inventory is current, because the last thing you want is for someone to order something and pay and then it's not available. So that's the hard work on the back end. The front end is always the easy bit. Having a fancy website which is able to accept payments is relatively easy nowadays. What we really find difficult and cumbersome for most people is making sure that it is up to date, inventory is up to date, the pictures are looking nice, You know, the pricing is up to date, the stock is up to date, and then issues are handled quickly. And then, of course, there's a whole issue of logistics. I can accept an order, but then making sure the item is delivered properly and easily and fast to the consumer is another big challenge. But there are all kinds of partners setting up, so many, even Uber is doing delivery nowadays, and there's so many apps and local companies who will handle that part of the business.
But Sakib, that would, it comes at a cost. And yes, the big firms, they can deploy that. But for an entrepreneur, I mean, listen, I'm already struggling to break even with the normal deliveries that I'm doing. Is the cost that favorable for that entrepreneur to deploy and explore all these virtual and e-commerce platforms in trying to reach out to my customers out there?
I think so. In fact, I think that technology is a great leveler. So now you have access to the same technology as Unilever or Nestle. You, as a small SME, now you have the same capabilities. How many people can build the capability to deliver across the country? As a small one-person shop or a 10-man shop, how far can you deliver? But by leveraging third parties, by leveraging delivery networks, by leveraging technology, now the whole country is at your disposal. So I think, yes, there's a certain cost to technology, but I think it's more expensive to do things the old manual way. Cash is very expensive to manage.
But so, for instance, if I have like a budget of like maybe 2,000 or 3,000, could I take steps to start an e-commerce platform?
Easily. I think websites are now going for 500,000 cedis. I think you can get going. Very simple, very basic. I would really recommend everyone starts trying, getting used to it, experimenting, making mistakes. We will make mistakes, as we always do. But you will learn your lessons. That's the best way to learn. And I think very cheap, and sometimes even for free. There's so many free tools, okay, to get going. And in the end, you see, do you even need that shop out there? The cost of real estate and a physical shop that you have to secure. You can work anywhere now. Do you need to be in a market? Do you need to be in an expensive real estate, you know, on a high street somewhere, which is so expensive, when you can work from your warehouse and deliver across the nation? Why not? I think it's much cheaper, in my opinion.
Sakib, I'll be coming back to, I mean, for those who don't know, Sakib has played a very critical role when it comes to the e-commerce space, operating a tech company, the payment platform company, and doing a lot for companies in terms of when it has to do with payment platforms. But so we'll be getting more on him about the challenges in the industry. And is it a myth or a reality if we talk about going virtual? What are the problems? Address system, payment platform, regulation, and all the rest. But let me connect with my other guests via a virtual platform. Achihesi is Chief Executive of the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems. Also, Ken Ashibe is with the Telecom Chamber. And for a lot of people, you know that, listen, when it comes to getting that data to drive your e-commerce platform, the telcos will play a very critical role. And some will say that, are they delivering for us? And also, government in terms of regulation and all the rest. We have the Deputy Minister of Communications, George Anda. Let me first start with Ken Ashibe. He is the Chief Executive of the Telecom Chamber. And for a lot of people, and it's good, George Anda is also here with us, the bits about it, the concern is that it is still quite expensive in terms of data. So for Adjo Mansa, who is into fashion, she's developing face masks and all the rest, after doing all these things, there's another extra cost about internet. Why is it still expensive, Ken?
Well, thank you very much, George. You see, when we start looking at cost, we need to start looking at the relativities. How easy was it for my grand auntie in China in those days to be able to weave kente and put it on a bus and drive it all the way and go and deliver it? And compare that with the fact that now, by virtue of the fact that networks are spread everywhere, she would have at least 3G in China to be able to leverage on technology to be able to deliver it. But there are various factors that contribute to the cost of internet. And, you know, it starts all the way from how much spectrum goes. It goes for all the costs that are involved in putting up cell sites. You know, currently now, it costs about $200,000 to be able to put a cell site up. But the good thing is, if you look at in terms of our costs, the costs keep on coming down. And so I'm sure as we go along, and as we develop new technologies and all of that cost will come down. But as Sakib said, you need to look at the relative cost. It is cheaper to leverage on technology. And not only that, by virtue of the new world that we are in now, the new normal is going to definitely be virtual. Even if we take, for example, yourselves, it's not only product delivery that is going to go virtual, but even service delivery. Now, education, conferences that people are doing, definitely the new normal has changed, and we definitely would have to embrace that. So what can we all do? One of the critical things that for me, I think is going to help us in Ghana is the fact that we're now going to be forced to develop a lot of local content. Because one of the problems that we have had in the past is the fact that we always go out to go consume content. But now, because we are forced by virtue of what is happening, and we are beginning to develop content ourselves, the media, even now in terms of products that we're selling, a lot of the things are local. We are going to, so now if I want to buy something, we need to develop systems in such a way that I don't need to go out, and go international onto the internet before I come back to you. Once we start getting a lot of content locally, what would happen is that even the cost of delivering internet would also come down. So there are a lot of things that we all need to do ourselves. Currently, as we speak, we're suffering a lot of fiber cuts, even within this COVID period. All of those, if we can work to be able to minimize that. The challenges we have with some chiefs also asking for extra money for any cell site that is going to be put out there. If we can work on all of those issues, the permit fees and all of that, if all together, and now we'll begin to see internet as a proper utility. It's not what it used to be in the past, where it was a nice to have, but now it's a critical to have. And as you see volumes grow, as you see a lot of people now consume internet for the things they do, education is a large chunk. As we get that happening, it will definitely bring the volumes up. You will begin to start seeing the economies of scale, and then it will definitely then per capita reduce the cost. So there are multiple things that go into the cost. Usage for us is one of them. The external costs are also there, but we all need to work together to ensure that we can drive this cost down.
Let me come to Achie. GEPS, they oversee, if I'm right, in terms of those various payment platforms. And let me first ask you, Achie, how has things been right now in this lockdown in terms of monitoring how payments are moving across the various platforms?
Thank you very much, George, and good evening to your cherished listeners. I was actually going to say hello to Pen, and I got cut off. Hello, Ben, George, and Sakib. I'd like to say that since the month of March to date, our switches have been very, very busy, something that we have really been looking forward to. Yes, it's an unfortunate situation, but like some of the guests said, it's an opportunity as well. And it's not only applicable to Ghana, but digital or remote payment or virtual payment, whatever words you want to use to describe it, is on the rise. And we are talking about non-contact payments, payments where you would not physically come in contact with your supplier. And as Sakib indicated earlier on, we realize that buyers and sellers are now, when it comes to the sellers, they are now moving away from the physical and now selling their products and services online as electronically. And once you have placed an order, you must also create mechanisms for people to pay online as well. I'm glad to say that at GIPS, we have a bouquet of payment platforms. We have account-to-account platform, it's electronic. We have the mobile money platforms as well, where we have connected them. And we also have payment platforms where if the seller has a bank account and the buyer has a mobile money account, you are still able to pay them. Talking about the capability that exists not only within the mobile money framework, but also between the bank accounts and the mobile network. We've also seen that there's been a lot of effort by the banks to connect their internet platforms, their their apps, as well as their USSDs to ensure that customers are able to use these applications to effect payments. In terms of data-wise or and volume of transactions, we've seen well in excess of 300% increases in all of the COVID-19 situation that the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in. Gives, as a company, we set our digital payments to zero as well. And this has also encouraged and helped individuals to migrate away from physical payments to.
Yes, we talk about going virtual for a lot of Ghanaian businesses. One thing that I also want to find out from you is about the state of our infrastructure, because there have been instances where people have complained that I'll pay this thing to X company. The company says, I haven't gotten the money. What is the state of our infrastructure to aid firms that want to go virtual? Is it robust now? Have you gotten it right this time, or we are still working it to fix certain edges?
When it comes to payments, there are a number of players involved. If you look at a typical example, our first, Sakib indicated that the web must be very solid and robust. We have various degrees of qualities when it comes to web service provision. Then we have the communication line, where data actually moves from a seller to a buyer. That's when the communication information moves across the line. There's a need for us to ensure that the quality of data is very good, not only at specific places within the country, but at all places within the country, not only at commercial areas. And then you have the national switch, GIPS. There's also a need for their system to be robust, be available 24/7, because individuals have moved away from transacting between the hours of 8. And there are certain financial institutions who have the habit of possibly turning their servers off during the evenings. But they've now realized that individuals are now more reliable or relying on their servers to transact 24/7. And they have also changed their attitudes. So I would say that it's a journey. And collectively, irrespective of wherever you find yourselves, you see that we are all improving overnight. Last week, the central bank as well, in response to all the issues happening, set up a digital and innovative department to focus explicitly on all the various electronic channels that exist in the country as well. So which didn't exist before. And that's an indication that we are all pooling, coming together to ensure that within the shortest possible time, we address all the pitfalls that might exist within the virtual or remote payment industry.
Let me come to Honorable George Anda, Deputy Minister of Communications. And Mr. Anda, some will say that the buck stops with you, right, in terms of infrastructure, cost of data. If you really want to go cashless, if you really want to aid firms in the midst of this COVID-19, it has to do working on the infrastructure and reducing the cost.
Thank you very much, George, and good evening to the fellow panelists, Sakib, Archie, Ken, and good evening to all the viewers. I think basically we do appreciate and we do recognize as a government the pivotal role of digitization in the transformational agenda as far as the government of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is concerned. George, if you recall, when we came into power, His Excellency the Vice President and the Honorable Esla Owusu-Ekuful, the Minister for Communications, were very, very focused on the fact that we were going to build a digital economy. And we started with 3 key initiatives: the National Digital Property Addressing System, the interoperability platform that we put in place, and then the National Identification Card system that we also put in place and we've started issuing. Now, these three initiatives, I believe, form the foundation of creating a digital economy. And when Ken and Saki were talking about how people can now make orders and stuff like that, of course, if everybody has a digital address, if everybody has a payment platform, then orders can be made in what I will call the market, which is like the website and stuff like that you're referring to. The delivery would be made to the exact location where the person is making the request using the National Digital Property Addressing System. So once you have your national, your digital address, that is easy. You don't have to be redirecting people. And then the payments can be made, like Ati has explained, using any of the payment platforms that are available. So I guess that as far as the initiatives that we put in place are concerned, it was very, very timely, and we should give thanks to the leadership of the country for going in that direction. When we talk about Ghana Digital Agenda, or the Digital Ghana Agenda, which obviously is one of the pillars of the Ghana Beyond Aid vision of His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, we're looking at 5 building blocks. Okay, the first one is about digital infrastructure. Okay, the second one is about ensuring digital inclusiveness and bridging the digital divide. So we are talking about capacity building. We're talking about making sure that we have the right people having the right level of competence to be able to deliver the right kind of services. We are talking about the digitization of government services, passport applications, driver's license, all those ones that we are experiencing now. We're talking about promoting e-governance, driving efficiency, reducing corruption, improving transparency and accountability, and developing the local startup ecosystem, so that we can kick the economy and start creating employment. As far as infrastructure is concerned, I think that Ken has explained that if we are consuming a lot of content across our borders, then we're going to be paying more for that content that we are consuming. Whereas if we are generating enough content and consuming the content that we are generating locally, then the cost that the telcos are going to charge their subscribers would definitely come down, because they are third-party costs. Once we are consuming from outside, then the telcos also have an obligation. They have to pay the suppliers from outside. But if we are producing and consuming content locally, then obviously that is a different cup of tea. Now, when we got into the COVID-19 situation, we met with all the telcos, and 2 of the telcos, MTN and Vodafone, did raise the issue about spectrum, because there was increased traffic in the data space, and they didn't have enough spectrum. So government gave a directive for us to give MTN and Vodafone additional spectrum, which was free of charge for them to use for 3 months for the period that people are at home. People are using more data. There's virtual learning from the kids in school and stuff like that. And so that is one area that the government has come in place to make sure that we can make sure that there's a seamless process for businesses to be able to go on. When you talk about as far as government activity is concerned, the smart workplace has been sort of reactivated, and almost every government ministry, department, and agency, the staff that are put on the smart workplace can work out of the office. They can work remotely. You're looking at for example, the rural telephony project, which is one of the projects that we are looking at to increase the level of infrastructure, improve the level of infrastructure that we have in our country, and that is also going on aggressively. So yes, I think that we are in a good place. I mean, nobody expected COVID to come in, but we have the right policies. we have the right initiatives, and we're doing what we have to do every day to improve the ecosystem for government to be able to deliver on services, for businesses to be able to work, and of course for citizens to also be able to go about their normal day-to-day activities using technology.
I'll be coming back to you to also explore the thing about, yes, these policies are there, brilliant policies, but what about full implementation and then ensure that actually it really works? Let me get back to Ken Ashibe and Archie, and I'll get back to studio. There is still a concern about fraud. And I'll start first with the telco, and I'll come back to Mr. Archie, since you will see these payment platforms. At the telco end, what are you also doing to make it easier that if the telco, if the entrepreneur talks about payment, I really get the money at my end? People still think that it's a huge discourage. People don't want to use these platforms because they cannot be assured that when I'm transferring that money, my party is going to get it. Ken? If you can hear me, Ken?
I think he's on mute.
Let me come to Mr. Achihesi. Achihesi.
I have muted my microphone.
Sorry.
So
He's not used to technology.
no, you see, so I muted the microphone. I muted to keep off the noise.
You learn. It's okay. You're getting there.
George, you know, I carry an ing in front of my name.
I'm just easy. Don't worry. I'm just easy, Ken.
I know that, but it definitely catches you all the time. You know, this issue about muting your microphones to cut out the noise, and you start talking, and then you realize that nobody can hear you.
Okay.
So I think that in terms of the issues of fraud and all of that, it's in two facets. There's the technical systems that have been put in place to ensure that the networks are very robust. And that is something that, when you come within the mobile space, it's really, really very robust, so that it's difficult for the hackers to be able to break into it. But the big part is what George just said, that is technology that we're learning. So it's the people part. The people part is the problem. The fact that as a society ourselves, we are so welcoming to everybody, and we're forgetting that the same way we'll tell our children that when you go out and you see a stranger, don't open up to the person, is the same thing that we should do within the cyberspace. So there's a lot of social engineering that is taking place. There's a lot of these frauds that we'll talk about. The problems don't come from the technical capabilities. Not as if somebody is able to hack into your mobile money account or find a way of getting into it. It is the fact that we get these fraudsters being able to social engineer people, and people then open up to them. There's the issue of phishing, the various means that they're using. So on a constant basis as an industry, we are always investing. And I see very recently one of the telcos have been going around, educating people. So it's an issue of education and education and education. And it's something that we are going to continually invest in. Because what happens is that, as Chenu Achebe would say, when the hunter learns to shoot without missing, the birds learn to fly without perching. So you find out that these fraudsters are constantly refining their processes. So for us as an industry, we're also constantly learning it. So you have ethical people who are looking at the way they do their things. As an industry as well, we've come together and we put together a fraud team that is looking at all of this, so that we're sharing knowledge across platforms, so that, as we progress even on that, we'll get to a point where when fraud is committed with particular numbers, they can be blocked. We can get to a point where even when devices are used, they can also be blocked. We'll get to a point where particular IDs also do that. So there's all of that is going to go on. What we need to focus on very heavily is the people part, is to be able to educate all of us, to tell ourselves that, your ATM pin, your mobile money pin, don't give them away. When somebody sends you an email that looks like something, be careful about it, confirm it. And you find out that now most of these digital platforms, they'll try and find a way of getting back to you to confirm every transaction that we need. So what we need to do is, working together with yourselves, the media, we need to focus on that. And one of the challenges you find is some of, especially in the digital TV space, we are allowing too much space for people who come and claim that they are doubling money and they're All of those is part of the fraud that we are facing. So we also need to work with GIBA. We need to work with the NMC, work with all of you media houses. So when you get people who come in and sit on TV and say they are doubling money, where are they getting the money from?
Yeah.
You know, all of these also perpetuate the fraud. So we need to clean up the space and make sure our people are aware, very aware. And I know that government is also working on a cybersecurity policy that would also strengthen, you know, our hands and make, you know, the enforcement a bit more rigorous. So there's so much that is going on. Thank God that on the technical side, we don't have a problem, but we need to work on the people, and it's the people, it's the people, it's the people.
Mr. Achiesi, at your end, do you think that we have the structures, the systems, and infrastructure in place to convince again the adjournments are out there that, listen, you're going virtual, the platforms are safe, let someone pay through your Momo, or I still want the person to drive to my office and pay to me?
I think I concur with most of the points that Ken has raised. In particular, when it comes to fraud associated with our technical infrastructure, that's what we call the cybersecurity. The government, and indeed in our sector, the central bank has come up with a framework that we as in DIPS, the financial sector, and all the MOMO entities, as well as the fintechs, are all going to abide by and conform to ensure that when it comes to transmitting of data, financial data, fraud is limited to acceptable level. We also adopted certain best practices. For example, if I want to send money to you and I type in your account number, the system would prompt me with your name for me to confirm that, yes, indeed, it is this person I want to send to. So just in case you have made a mistake, instead of typing 7, you type 9, and the name comes up and it's Ajua and not geography. That would give me a hint that there's a need for me to go back. We've also introduced things in the financial sector where you have a second code or second factor authentication, as we call it, whereby once you've typed in your PIN, a second PIN is also sent to your telephone, and you also include that in the transaction before the transaction completes. Should all these fail, we also have put in dispute resolution committees where we can sit down and address most of these issues. But at the end of the day, it boils down to a lot of awareness and education for all the various stakeholders, users, and participants to be aware of all these provisions that we have put in place for us to collectively reduce fraud to the barest level.
Sakib, I mean, you are a player in this industry. I mean, have Ghanaians come to really accept e-commerce from what you've done in the past and what you're doing right now as a tech player, providing several payment platforms? So a lot more still need to be done on the regulation side for private firms like you to survive when it comes to e-commerce and going virtual.
Well, I think it's a journey. You know, e-commerce doesn't happen in one day. In the West, where Amazon is now so strong, they've been used to digital payments for so long. Credit cards have been working there for about 100 years, you know, roughly. And so it takes time. You know, we are a bit behind, and we have, so it will take us a bit longer to get to e-commerce. But it's happening already. You know, you can see, especially during this crisis, how the banks were promoting digital payments. So I believe that e-commerce is part of the journey, but the first bits are financial services, pensions, insurance, school fees, services, and now a lot of those services can be consumed from home at any time. I can go home right now and pay school fees. I can go home right now and apply for my passport. I can go home right now, pay for national health, and so many other things. You know, e-commerce will also happen eventually. So in all our businesses, you know, it's not everyone who is trading in physical goods. There are lots of people who are trading in services. And that's the area that is fast growing right now for everyone here.
If you've just joined us, this is PM Express, the business edition. We're looking at going virtual in the midst of all these COVID-19 problems. Are we ready as a country? What are the threats out there? What are the real opportunities? in terms of regulation, in terms of putting in place the right laws. I've had those who matter in this industry. Ken Ashigbe is the Chief Executive of the Telecoms Chamber, and also Deputy Minister of Communications is also with us. And Achiesi, he is with GIBS, the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement System, in terms of overseeing the various financial platform. And Sakib Nazir, he actually supervises a lot of payment platform as a player in this industry. When we come back, we're looking at going cashless and whether as a country we are ready for going virtual or not. This is the PM edition, PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. PM Express Business Edition. We're talking about going virtual. What are the threats and what are the real opportunities out there? We're having Sakib Nazir. He is a payment person. He's a private sector player when it comes to operating a tech company and overseeing several payment platforms. Achi Hesi is Chief Executive of the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement System. When you talk about, moving that money from that phone to a different network, they are providing the infrastructure, overseeing that infrastructure to make sure that it gets to you. The telcos, our friends and our enemies at the same time sometimes. The Chief Executive of the Telecoms Chamber, Ken Ashigbe, is with us, and also the Deputy Minister of Communications, George Anda, also with us in terms of what government is doing to ensure that when we talk about going virtual, when we talk about e-commerce, the right infrastructure, the right policies have been put in place to ensure that we indeed get there. Ken, let me come to you quickly about the future of e-commerce in Ghana, the future of going virtually in Ghana. And for those private and small businesses out there, the telcos, are you going to do what you have to do to support us? Or you think that there are still some problems that need to be addressed?
Well, I think that generally we realize the fact that this is about an ecosystem. We are in the world right now that it's about collaboration. And so for us, that's really where the focus is on. How do we collaborate with everybody? It's when we are able to grow the small players that they become big players and they will be able to consume the services that we do. So if you look at, in terms of the EMIs, the electronic money issuers, the mobile money companies who are members, there's a lot of collaboration going on within that particular space to be able to ensure that we really can move from where we are, where we're doing a lot more just money transfer, to where we have a very robust payment system. That's really a merchant payment system. That's really where we need to go. So in terms of the collaboration, not only are we collaborating with players, but there's also a lot of collaboration even with the regulators as well. And Sakib will tell you that when we did the MT4D, it's a whole conversation that we want to have where we can bring all people, all players together to be able to ensure that we can grow this. Because once we get the merchant payment really sorted out, that's when e-commerce would go. So we also need to work together with everybody in building the confidence. We need to work together with everybody to ensure that this network works, this system works. And bear in mind, when we look at e-commerce, we look at the world that is going to come. One of the major changes that is going to happen is in education. Definitely what we're seeing now currently with what has happened to us, we're not going to go back to it. So how do we ensure that we are able to empower the teachers? We are able to provide not only the networks, but we also provide devices and provide the know-how to everybody so that we are able to take advantage of the virtual platforms to also sell education, be able to sell, conferences, sell others. There's so many other things. And so as we look at e-commerce in product sense, also in the service sense as well, we need to really be facilitating that. And the only way we're going to be able to win is when we do a lot of collaboration. And I think Ghana, we have shown the way. If you look at the way we have grown in terms of, if you look into just the mobile money space, where we have come from and the point that we've gone to. Look at the issue of interoperability. What we have done with interoperability is the first in the world. And one of the things that most people outside, when they come back, they ask is that how were we able to get everybody to work together So we need to realize the fact that we've been able to do things in a PPP way. And so we need to continue to collaborate. The regulators need to work together with the players. We need to work together with our customers. We need to work together with the small players, because when we start getting everybody come on board and we get the critical mass getting there, because definitely in all of this thing that we're talking about, cash is the enemy. And COVID-19 has even raised the fact that cash is not only the enemy because it's expensive, but it's also one of the means by which we are transmitting this virus. So we really need to embrace this so that we don't go back to the old way of doing things, so that we also will be able to compete with everybody. So for us as an industry, it's all going to be about innovation. It's all going to be about collaboration. It's going to be about investing in our people, building our people together, so that together all of us will be able to build the world that we want to build, be able to jump where we are as a lower middle income to a first income country. And we can do it. If you look at the fintechs that are coming up, great collaborations that are coming up, definitely this is something we can do. And we need to continue with the issues of collaboration. Regulators also need to put in a lot more regulation that would be husbanding the system, but allowing innovation to thrive and ensuring robust affects all of us.
Let me bring in Achihesi, the future of payment system. I mean, if you're going virtual, then it's about cashless. Gibbs, how ready are you to provide the platforms for us in terms of going forward to ensure that when I'm moving money across, everything is going to be done quickly for me?
From the Gibbs point of view, as Ken indicated, there are a whole number of stakeholders, the whole ecosystem. But when we look at national switches in the world, what we currently have in Ghana is one of the best in the world. I'm talking about the full services, bouquet of services that any national switch can provide. When you come to the bulk electronic payment environment or services, we have the ACH direct, the standard, the ACH that is electronically used for salary payments. When you come to interbank bank account, paying from bank account into another bank account, we have the instant, the Gibbs instant payment platform. When it comes to the mobile money interoperability, which Ken indicated earlier on as well, that we have achieved in Ghana. And we also have a unique platform where they are unbanked that mainly use the mobile money platforms, and the bank world that uses the GIP. We have actually connected the two together. And in Ghana, we are able to seamlessly make transfers and payments between them. As Ken indicated, yes, when it comes to transfers, we are there. Now, how do we transition from transfers to payments? When it comes to that, you see that late last month or so, we launched the QR code. The QR code will replace some of the expensive point-of-sale devices that we have, and it would enable us to make low-cost payment using the which rides on the GIP platform, which means that merchants will now receive payments instantly using a cheaper platform. The central bank has been very instrumental in creating, and as well as government, instrumental in creating the right environment for digitized payments to grow. I have no doubt in my mind that, yes, we are in the very challenging times, but the time is right. From the government and the central bank, we have the leader.
Mr. George Anda, let me move to Mr. George Anda, and sorry that time is not our good friend. In 2 minutes, actually. Mr. Anda, there's talk about everything being about government taking the first step. There's talk about cashless. Are we still working with is it a June deadline where everything would be cashless? What is the status of that?
Well, I mean, we're working towards that deadline, but I'm sure that you'd also appreciate the fact that we are not in normal times, so there may be a bit of an extension. But that commitment is there in terms of making sure that all government payments are cashless. That commitment is there. But let me just spend just a minute to talk about the fraud issue, because you didn't give me a bite on that. Like Ken and Archie have said, it is important that we have the right infrastructure to support all these digital initiatives that we are looking at. And it's very, very important that we have the right kind of data. If you have people who have SIM cards and these SIM cards are not registered, and these SIM cards are used for fraudulent activities, then there's no way that you can trace and find out who the person was. And that is why the Honorable Minister for Communications has emphasized that we need to do the SIM re-registration, okay, to make sure that all SIMs are properly registered. Now, beyond that, we are also going to put in place the device registry, where all devices are going to be registered. So once every individual has a national ID, once every individual has a digital address, once every device is registered, once every SIM is registered, the level of transparency and the level of confidence in the whole ecosystem becomes very much increased, and that is what we are working towards.
Mr. Andani, Mr. Anda, sorry, the SIM re-registration, all other things being equal, when is it going to start? In 10 seconds. The SIM re-registration, when is it going to start?
Well, I'm sure, because, you know, at the moment, the system that's in place would have to be re-engineered because of the social distancing regime. And we will have to be working with the telcos to find out whether we can do something that is online. Once the national ID card system is perfect. So we're getting there. We know exactly what we are going to do. George, you remember that when we started talking about the national property addressing system, some people were out there saying that we had got Google Maps. Now people are seeing the importance of what the Minister of Communications did.
Okay. But, Sakib, you would have maybe the final word here in terms of, as a player, are you optimistic that the future is bright? In 30 seconds.
I think so. Of course, it will only get brighter and brighter. You know, people understand the value of going e-commerce, of going virtual, of going cashless. The only thing I would ask for government to consider is possibly tax breaks for companies going digital, and perhaps more penalties for going with cash. Although we do have to appreciate that we can't go 100% cashless, we can't exclude certain fractions. But I think tax breaks for companies going digital would really help push the agenda.
Thank you, Sakib Nazir. Mr. George Anda, listen, I appreciate your time so much, and all the other players, Ken, and also Mr. Hesse. Thank you so much. Through the virtual world, we connected to you, and indeed, we are already taking the steps in terms of going virtual here at Join You. Sen, thank you so much for your time. And have a good night. We draw the curtain down here on the PM Express Business Edition. And then the debate will still be going on in your homes, going virtual. The threats